Shannon, and I just wanted to give you a little bit of an overview of what your students can expect in the Contextual History Year 1 class that I'll be teaching here at Arise. So this first year, we are studying Tudor and Georgian history. We're doing it a little bit different. That's why it's called Contextual History. We're actually going to be looking and learning about two famous figures within those eras, and then a bunch of other people that are also famous figures in those eras. So we're going to be looking at the life of William Shakespeare in the first semester, and then the life of Jane Austen in the second semester. And by doing that, it makes it a good companion course for the British Literature Year 1 course. So I'll just put that in there as kind of a little bit of a seed for you to go and look at your leisure to see how those courses kind of marry well together, especially if you're studying for the UK exams. And but otherwise, if you're doing it just as a standalone course, it is great for the US transcript and diploma model, but it fits nicely into the necessary requirements to be ready for the UK exam for British literature. So let's go ahead and jump into it. This is what the course looks like here on the page. I want to do a couple things just to give you an outline of where we're going. We're going to take a look at the classroom, and so you can see what happens kind of on a daily or weekly basis within the classroom. And then I want to help you and your students understand where they're headed for the final project that they will do each semester. We'll show you one of those, all right? So let's just jump over to the classroom here, and you'll see we use Google Classrooms, and we put all the resources and all the assignments in the classroom for your student to be able to access from their own classroom dashboard. So you'll get the resources from my website over at Captivating Compass, and you'll need those in order to have all the moving parts to make this work well. But let's just take a look at what's included here. All right, so when we start out, we do the first 3 weeks is an introduction to Shakespeare, just a little bit about his life and his family, and just kind of laying a little bit of a foundation. In week 2, we start working on the dinner project, which is the culminating project. So the premise of each semester is we're going to create a dinner party. And we're going to, by doing that, we're going to learn about all of the, not all of them, but a large handful, about 40 people that were alive during Shakespeare's time that he may have come in contact with. We take a little bit of artistic license in that, you know, he may have only been 2 when somebody else was alive in their middle-aged years or something like that. But we're going to look at bringing them together and kind of asking the question of what happens if you put these people around a dinner table. So we learn about them all. Like here, I'll just give you, let me click into the research part. So in week 2, this is who the students will research. They're going to research individuals from a variety of different sectors. The authors and philosophers, you're also going to do musicians, we're going to do scientists, we're going to do public figures, all different kinds of people, and you'll see that throughout the coursework. And I do believe we mentioned those on the product description as well. So while we're learning about Shakespeare, we're also learning about these other people. And as we go through, we're going to study Shakespeare the boy and what life was like for young Shakespeare, and then Shakespeare the man and the things that he encountered there and how life changed for him, city life versus country life, and those different things like that. And then the businessman. And all the while, we're still learning about these other individuals, and we're also learning about Tudor culture. We're going to look at entertainment. We're going to look at food. We're going to look at etiquette and some different things, because all of those pieces become important when you're planning a dinner party, right? So we go through and we get to the end, and we start the last 2 or 3 weeks, depending on the number of students in the class. We will be presenting the presentations for all the information that's been collected about the individuals. Let me see if I can find the template up here really quick here is the worksheet template. These are the things that people will be researching for each individual. They're going to go through and the name of the person, where they were born, the language they spoke, what they were famous for, what were their thoughts on slavery or current or past wars, and what were their thoughts on the economy and of the country in which the dinner party is taking place. And that becomes important because some of the other dinner parties we do in subsequent semesters, you're in different countries. So what are their thoughts on exploration, religion, science, the latest inventions? So your students might not have answers to all of these questions for each person, but the goal there is to get them to think critically about what might, based on who this person is, what might they have strong feelings about, or what may they have written about and be willing and wanting to discuss at this dinner party that we're creating. So as we move through, they also need to find 3 famous quotes, or maybe even not so famous, but 3 quotes that resonate with the student that the famous person might actually say in some part of the conversation to at the dinner party. And you'll see how all these pieces fit together when we look at a presentation here in just a minute. And of course, with every good research, you need to cite your sources. So just reminding them to do that as they walk through each person. So they look really quickly in general at the beginning of a variety of different people, and then they'll go and they'll pick their guest list where they will research a little bit more of these people and how they're going to put them together for the dinner party. So let's go over and just look at this presentation really quick. I'm just going to turn it into a quick slideshow and run through it so you can see this was created by a previous student of mine for their final project for that first semester when we did Shakespeare. So the esteemed guests, and these are the esteemed guests. So she's gone here and she's put in a picture. She's given a little bit of information about the individual and who they're going to sit by. You can see here the questions for adjacent dinner associates. So she's gone through and she has, I want to see if we go back one. Let me escape. I want to make sure I think we've gone a little, I jumped ahead too far. So I wanted to start here. Let me start here. All right, so the hostess is Queen Elizabeth. The honored guest is William Shakespeare. These are the people that this student invited to the dinner. And what she does is a seating chart is created so that then you can create conversations between the different individuals. So she's given them their initials and she's put a little icon there to give a little bit of information about who they are and how they're sitting at the table there. Then she goes through and in their presentation, they will list the people and they will talk about the different things that they might talk about at the dinner party and what they might say to one another, to the people sitting on the left and the right of them, or even across from them sometimes. All right, so you can see she's gone through, she's listed her people, she's asked some questions, and they're a little bit difficult to see, and there was some run over there in the presentation, but you get the effect. The student would be giving us the dialogue of this information as well. So we would understand full well in the presentation sessions what was being communicated about the different individuals. So as we go through, I'm going to escape again and jump down a little bit more so we don't have to look at all of the individuals. Then she moves into a different section where she lists the food that is going to be part of the dinner. And because Queen Elizabeth is the host, she does a massive dinner, a massive Christmas dinner. So you can see all the different things that have been put into this meal. And they do this by researching the different appropriate dishes at that time and bringing them to the just to the presentation and to the event, if you will, as they're planning for it. So this student went all out. This project was her senior thesis because she was moving on to university to study British literature. So she really went all out with what she did, with everything. Let's go ahead and look down here. Part 2, she talks about the dinner party with friends, and she actually put on a proper dinner party with actual people and had them play parts. So let's see. You can see this is her getting things ready, and she went through and talked about what they did at the actual dinner party through this last section. So what the students get to do is they get to put together the dinner party as well as consider entertainment, the menu, and really kind of get into the heads of the different characters and the different individuals, the characters, the famous people that are part of the dinner party. So you can see here, Robert Johnson sits next to John Donne, Jane the Fool, and near Sir Francis Drake. So left and right and across is what we're looking at. And so based on research, what would Robert Johnson ask John Donne or Jane the Fool? So you can see the different questions that they've asked them. Let me see if I can move this out of the way so we can see the whole question there. Okay. So the question to John Donne is, have you ever been inspired by music to write? So that's a really thoughtful question because she understands Robert Johnson, who he is, and understands who John Donne is. And the same thing, knowing who Jane the Fool was and how. So the question to her is, how often do you perform for the Queen? Do you prefer music to accompany your routines, or do you find it distracting? So Robert Johnson, being a musician, is asking musically oriented questions of the individuals. And then this last question to Sir Francis Drake. How many times have you been out to sea? Does your crew ever bring along instruments to play? So those are thoughtful questions based on the person, knowing who the person is that's asking them, and then knowing the person that the question is being asked to. So it creates a really rich understanding of history within the era and really allows the student to have a fun way of exploring the history of the era and getting to know a lot of different people. All right, so as we wind up this taster session, I just want you to understand that first semester of year 1, we do Shakespeare. Second semester, we take that same idea of a dinner party and we do it with Jane Austen, and we look at that era of the Georgian era and the Regency era and dive into the people that were alive then, the things that were happening, and how they coped with all the different wars going on and the cultural and societal things happening, and look at how to understand history based on looking at a single individual and who they might have encountered in real life. So it's really exciting. You know, when I talk about Shakespeare, when I remind people kind of that Shakespeare and Galileo were alive at the same time. We don't often remember that because we compartmentalize literature over here and science over here, but they really did actually interact at a high level. Those two individuals in particular, and we'll dive into that a little bit as we study each of the individuals and we discuss them in class and they do the homework assignments. We're going to learn so much together, both about Shakespeare, but also about Jane Austen when we get to her in the second semester. So I hope you will join us. If you have questions, feel free to message me or tag me on Facebook, and I would love to answer your questions and help you understand how contextual history is an exciting way to learn history, earn social studies credit for the U.S. model, or prepare for that UK literature and English exam that you might be preparing for. All right, thanks so much.